Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. Please do say hi and let us know so we know that you're out there. And also, please feel free to put any comments or questions in the chat because we will be able to see this here in the studio. So, Jeff, I met you through our mutual friend, Jillian Whitney, who we both adore. And we had a chat earlier this year, and I'm so excited that you said yes to me because I know you're in demand, and I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation. So, for those two people who don't know you, please tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'll give it the minute to win it. Actually, it'll probably be less than a minute.
Okay.
Basically, my network, you guys, you and everyone else that knows me calls me the LinkedIn guru, as you can see next to my name. And I like that because of the fact that when you look up guru, you see the word teacher. Okay. And that is exactly what I am. I'm a LinkedIn teacher, and I've actually been doing LinkedIn teaching and training for about 15 years now. At the end of this month, it'll actually be 15 years because I started in 2008. And it's just one of those things that I've enjoyed a great deal. What I end up doing is about 60 free seminars a year. I'm unusual in that respect as well because I do all my seminars for free. And I count this as a seminar because anytime I can get together with somebody and share ideas and hopefully provide some advice or find a way of helping them, that's a seminar as far as I'm concerned. So that's me in a nutshell. Namaste.
Yeah, I love that you say that. And as we were talking about a little bit before we went live, that's kind of how we are in our tribe is. We like to share with our friends and colleagues and also with people who could use advice. So I want to thank you for choosing this topic today because it is near and dear to my heart. And although I tend to think that people who are active on LinkedIn on a regular basis kind of understand the ins and outs of LinkedIn etiquette. But it seems that it's not the case. So I want to delve into that. But one thing that I want to ask you, because I think this will be some good advice, you call yourself a professional networker. So I think I have an idea of what that means, but can you share a little bit of that? Because I think that will be good for people to know.
Well, for me, networking has always been a part of my life. I've always described, networking is like air. You need it to survive, because it's always been a part of my professional career. It's always been a part of my personal career, if you will. So from that standpoint, when I call myself a professional networker, that was kind of a play on words because I don't get paid to network. However, if you look at my profile, you do see what I do get paid in. And basically, I get paid in 3 C's: coffee, conversation, and occasionally chocolate. Okay. And oh, by the way, Chardonnay is a really good C. If you want to pay me that way, that'd be but that's how I describe it that way. And it was really, honestly, it was something that I picked up from another friend of mine that I found during networking. She used to say professional networker, coffee, conversation, and Chardonnay. So I changed it from Chardonnay to chocolate and made it mine, right? Because that's exactly how I do love to get paid. And I get paid in chocolate all the time. So,
the thing that I love about you, because, I know you and several of friends we have in common, think of networking as being out there and meeting other people that you will like and enjoy and may become maybe professional connections, but maybe friends. Every once in a while you get lucky and you get someone who becomes a real friend. And I think the reason that I hear from people is they hate networking because they think of it in a very transactional idea. Like, I will go to an event and I am seeking, customers for my business or someone to help me find a job. And if they don't find that, they feel like it was a waste. And if they do not, but get I'm sure you don't, and I don't either. If I meet some interesting people, it's a success for me.
absolutely. And you should never think of networking as a task. I mean, it really should just be a part like breathing, right? I used to teach networking back even before I taught, LinkedIn for a job search organization.
Mhm.
We called it networking, get started and never stop was the name of the actual class. And what we used to talk about is, people don't realize they're networking just because they're having a conversation. I mean, have you ever talked to somebody else when you're in line at a Starbucks? Okay,
Yep, all the time.
when you're in line at a Kroger. Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, that's networking. Okay, and I used to illustrate. Remember the old show with Tim Allen that was called Home Improvement?
Yes.
Remember the guy that was
Yeah.
always behind it?
Yeah.
That's networking. They
Mhm.
were networking. It's the same thing.
I know it's the thing is too. If I'm looking for something, someone new to cut my hair, I'm asking my friends, and that's networking. And so I just wanted to sort of
Absolutely.
share that because I think particularly at this time of the year when people are going out networking, well, it's actually always important, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. So,
Absolutely.
I have a few things to ask you about, but before I get started, can you just share a few sort of LinkedIn etiquette basics?
Well, let me. I think I've heard you say this a lot. Let me tell you a story. Okay. um, because I think here's a basic thing that I think is the approach to networking. I actually did this or an etiquette on LinkedIn. Okay, and it all fits together. This morning when I got up, because I knew you and I were going to be getting together in a few hours, because I get up pretty early. I mean, I'm a morning person. So the very first thing that I did this morning was that I reposted your post. Okay, I reposted this live. Okay,
Mhm.
because that was, I thought, the proper etiquette to advertise it a little bit so that my network would see it on a timely basis, maybe join us, maybe be in the crowd, ask some questions, come to the party in essence, right? But then from an etiquette standpoint, to me, a lot of LinkedIn etiquette is not about me. It's about what I can do for others. Okay, so after I did that post, I started thinking about, okay, now what are we going to be talking about? Okay, well, it's talking about etiquette, it's talking about professional versus, personal versus, et cetera. Okay, and I remembered something. Okay, I remembered that I had heard from somewhere, but I couldn't even remember whom. Okay, that there was a really good post that had the words professional, personal, and private in it.
Mhm.
So guess what? Being the LinkedIn guru, I'm going, can LinkedIn find this for me? I bet it can. Okay, so I went up to the search bar. I typed in quote professional space capital AND quote personal, okay, unquote, again, space AND, because what I'm really doing with that is Boolean searching,
Yeah.
looking for the word professional, the word personal, and finally private. And guess what? LinkedIn found it for me. It was right there at the top of the list because nobody else had used those words. And I found that Sarah Burgess is the person
Mhm.
who done that. So I said, oh, okay, proper etiquette. I'm going to put that post out there because I'm going to put a link to that post out there, and I'm going to give credit to both you and Sarah Burgess because when she posted it, she
Mhm.
gave you credit for it. But then in your reply, you even said, well, I didn't make this up. I
Mhm.
just use it, right?
Yep.
But it's so appropriate. See, that's exactly how I think you should approach LinkedIn from the standpoint of just passing on what you're learning. Because I got to guarantee you, if you're really trying, if you're really making any kind of effort at all, you're going to learn something every single day on LinkedIn. And that, that professional versus personal versus, okay, private,
Private. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
showed up for me in big time because it really spoke to me. Because I'm
Mhm.
kind of the same way. Again, this is just personal. There are people out here on LinkedIn who share some private stuff,
Yeah. I know.
and honestly, I'm a little uncomfortable with it. Unless I know them well, I would never do that. But to me, proper LinkedIn etiquette, at least nowadays, it used to be pretty stuffed shirt, button
Mhm.
down. You had to be pretty professional. You couldn't get too much personal into it, right?
Yeah.
To me, now it's a really good mix of both professional
Mhm.
and personal. Your personality needs to come through somehow, and it's okay that it does. Um, Now, again, that's different for different people. Okay,
Mhm.
so when I talk about that, when I say personal, that
Mhm.
probably doesn't mean that I'm posting a selfie. That's just me. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm just not a selfie kind of person. I mean, honestly, I've said this before and joked about it before. I'd rather beat myself with a selfie stick than take a picture. So I don't want to go there. But okay, there are times when it's a personal, when it makes sense to be personal. Back about a month and a half or so ago, at the end of October, Halloween, okay, I did a post with 2 Halloween pictures. They were pictures of me, and this is, you'd have to go back this far to see a picture of me in one of my posts. But there were 2 pictures of me, one of them in a Superman uniform. Guess why?
Mhm.
Okay, okay,
Yep.
and the second one was me in a Star Trek Picard uniform.
Yep. I remember.
Exactly. And I'm telling you, that post went nuts because people
Yep.
thought it was great. Now, even though that picture was very personal, okay, to me, I took the 2 things about Superman, okay, and Star Trek and made them a professional point because I
Mhm.
said, look, if you're going to be like Superman, show your superpower out here on LinkedIn. Show what you're made of, what you got. And oh, by the way, I took a thing that is very famous for Patrick Stewart and Picard, and in terms of, and if you're going to be Picard out here on LinkedIn, you need to engage.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I love it, and actually, he has a new show
Oh, I know.
on,
I've seen his
and
new show.
yeah, I love it. I love it. He's fabulous. So, yeah, I do love that phrase myself. And as I said, I did not make that up. I heard somebody say it on Clubhouse, which is probably why I don't remember who said it, and it really spoke to me as well. And I am like that too. I like to share personal things, bits of my life. So I occasionally will post a picture of my husband and I at a football game or something. Most of my personal posts actually revolve around my dogs,
I
our
know. I love
dogs,
you. Yeah, I
because
love your dogs. I love your
yeah,
dogs.
because you know what? Who doesn't like dogs? And I actually have made them. They have become sort of part of my brand with the whole dogs thing. I'm a big dog rescue advocate and all that stuff.
Yep.
And for the private, I agree with you. And I did share, like, when there was that "This Little Girl Is Me" campaign that ran earlier this year, I think it was. And I did share things like, when I was born, it was an embarrassment, and my grandfather was so disappointed that I wasn't a boy, because they were very, my grandfather was from the old country, had husbands and wives picked out for all his kids, and it wasn't like all that long ago. I'm not that old, and it was just like, oh my goodness, why couldn't it have been a boy? But for the most part, I don't like, if I was getting a divorce right now, I wouldn't be talking about it I'm not, but I wouldn't be talking about it on LinkedIn. And yet you're
Yeah.
right, there are people
That's a little too. That's a little too.
share but what concerns me about that, and I'm with you, to each his own, but I hear LinkedIn coaches sometimes telling people that, oh, you should be vulnerable, it's so important to be vulnerable. And I think that people sometimes um post things that they might not be quite comfortable with, because someone has told them that they need to be vulnerable, and that's
Yeah.
what I take
Yeah.
issue with.
I would rather use the word open than vulnerable. Okay. Open to having the conversation. I mean, I wouldn't normally share that I lost my dad when I was a senior in high school, but I've done that on LinkedIn as well,
Mhm.
because at Father's Day, you're starting to think about that stuff, right?
Yes.
So it does that. I think that the thing that bothers me is some of the practices that people think get them something they need, but it doesn't really. Okay. So there's a whole litany of lists of those kind of things. As a matter of fact, there was somebody else who just made a post about that, today. I mean, one of the things that bothers me about LinkedIn etiquette, for example, is something that I didn't make this one up either, but I'll put it in quotes and use it. Okay. Pitch slap. Okay.
Yep.
I think that's a perfect illustration of what happens. I feel like I've been slapped when somebody does that. Okay,
Mhm.
you connect with them, and then boom, immediately,
Yep.
or you don't even connect with them. They send you a DM. Okay, and for me, a part of the etiquette on LinkedIn is having an open profile as well. In
Mhm.
other words, one of the things that's a little different for me, and one of the reasons that I actually pay for LinkedIn, people ask me about this all the time, whether you should or shouldn't, and it all depends. But in short, I'll leave it at that. But I pay for LinkedIn because one of the things that allows me to do is allow anybody of the 875 million people that are out there to send me a direct message. They don't have to be connected with me to send me
Yes.
a message. So I want to be that open. I want to start the conversations, right? So that's a part of the etiquette as well, being open to that. But if somebody slaps me in a DM, I'm going to drop them like a bad habit. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Yep. Yep.
It just doesn't fly with me.
Me too. Me too. So I just want to say hello to some of our friends in the audience. My friend Sarah Tim, who is excited to learn from you today. I don't know if you know her.
Yeah.
And of course our dear friend Jillian. Jillian, we love you, and I will be watching you later today. So so happy to have them join us. And so I just want to say here, and I'm sorry, I'm going to try to Charmaline, very pretty
I
name.
mean,
I'm sorry that I'm butchering it. Says, yes, you certainly can network in unexpected places. And I am one. If I'm at Trader Joe's, I'm talking to people about if I'm looking at a product and I see someone, did you try this? Is it good? And it's just kind of makes life more fun, I think.
absolutely.
So I want to ask you something about commenting.
Hmm.
And I know that obviously when we are commenting on posts, you don't want to say, great post or love this or, something like that, because it really it doesn't help if you're trying to help the person post who's post, trying to support them. It doesn't really help them. And it certainly doesn't, say anything about you either. But I have seen some things, and there has been talk about this for as long as I can remember, about the idea of sort of promoting yourself or others in someone else's post. Now, if I was working with, because I work with consultants, if I was working with a social media consultant, I wouldn't say, okay, go to another social media consultant's post. And yes, if you want to go on and say, yes, I agree with that too, and here's why, or something, that is fabulous. But I wouldn't say, well, go to their post and say, oh, by the way, I have some great, go to my profile because I have great how-to videos there. Or, oh, by the way, I know someone else, and name them. Like, I know this other person who also does social media marketing. Check them out.
Yeah.
And I have had that. A friend of mine just messaged me recently and said that happened to them. I have had that happen to me. I've talked to people about it, and some people have said, no big deal. They didn't mean anything by it, but it still, it rubs me the wrong way, and I'm curious to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, it kind of rubs me the wrong way as well. I mean, again, in what we were talking about before, I think if you look at this in terms of when you comment on something, you're right, you need to maybe add some value to the comment. Now, by the way, Annette, I could put a link to something that I have, okay,
Mhm.
every single comment, because that's what I do. I'm a
Yep.
teacher. I point people in the right direction, right? And so I could do that, but I don't. There is no way that I'm ever going to hijack somebody's post to get them to come over to my post or my stuff. It's just not going to happen, right? Now, I do walk up to that line, however, okay? Because again, I never put the link in there, but I might actually put a picture of what I might have, okay?
Mhm.
So, because I do a lot with graphics, right? I'm almost
Yep.
always, every comment I have
Yes.
has a graphic on it, right? So I might put a graphic out there, but I got to tell you that again, a proper etiquette for this kind of thing is if you really felt strongly enough about providing that kind of a link, then ask.
Mhm.
Ask the author. Be respectful and ask the author whether it would be okay. Okay. And our good friend Jillian Whitney has said, "You have carte blanche. You can put one anytime you want to on mine." I'm going, okay. I probably still won't do it, but okay. Thank you. That's very nice. Okay. So now, I said just a second ago that I also kind of walk up to that line. Okay. One of the other things that you're going to find in every single one of my comments, because I'll make a statement or I'll try to add some value if I can. But then the other thing that you are always going to find is something that is a part of my brand as well. That acronym, Namaste. Okay.
Yes.
Network and make all sorts of terrific energy. Okay.
Mhm.
NAMST. Okay. And oh, I'm also going to have my hashtag in there as well. So that's kind of stepping up to the line on that, because those are both links. But you know what? There's nothing more onus or more heinous than self promotion when it gets to be over the top. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's really no different than self promotion. Of if somebody wanted to go to my profile and they liked what I said, they could click on my name or they could click on my picture and go to my profile. Right. So that could happen. Right.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you, but I have to say I also think of it when you're sort of tagging someone who has a similar service in your comment. To me, it'd be like walking into, I don't know, my local bakery, and if someone was at the counter and we were talking about how great the food is, the baked goods are, I wouldn't say, you know who else has great bakes? Go to Joe's down the street.
yeah.
I'm just uncomfortable with that, and I see it, and again, some people have told me that's no big deal, but it rubs me the wrong way, and I just don't like it.
Well, and while we're on the subject of tagging, when I tag, I almost always tag no one other than the author. Okay, because I want to try to make sure that if I comment on your post, you see it in
Yes.
notifications.
Yeah.
Because LinkedIn's a little squirrely sometimes and doesn't notify you that I even commented. Okay,
Yeah.
so I do that, and very occasionally I might actually put another name out there if I thought they might be interested in the conversation
Yes,
as
yes,
well.
yes. Whole different
Nothing wrong
thing.
with that. Nothing wrong with
Whole different thing. Yeah, I love that you said that, and, yeah, it is really interesting, and I think the whole thing with the hashtags is different, and actually, it's a good reminder for me. I should do that myself because put in a hashtag for my branding because I see other people do that, and I think that is smart. That is smart,
it,
but
again, it just becomes a part of the brand. It's almost like a signature, right? I mean, like a sig line on your email or something along those lines. It always ends the same way. Now, the people who know me well, obviously they've seen it before. They're going to ignore it. It's not for those people. It's for the people that maybe have never seen a comment, and I might get lucky and impress them with a comment, and they
yeah.
might want to know more. Okay, so
So I have to ask you because I know that, you are often a guest on people's LinkedIn live shows like this, podcast, which this will become a podcast as well. So what's your favorite topic to talk about?
ooh. Well, it's how to do something on LinkedIn, depending, it could be almost anything, right? Because I'm kind of a how-to person. I think that what that allows me to do is it allows me to be the kind of teacher that I think is the best kind of teacher. Okay. I show you where to look, but I don't tell you what to see. Okay. So I just show people how the tool works. Because to me, honestly, that's one of my favorite topics, because of the fact that that makes people more effective on LinkedIn. Knowing how it works, knowing how to process notifications effectively, how to process comments effectively, et cetera. All of that really helps uh, give a person time back that they would spend ineffectively doing stuff that would take them longer and get lost. Okay.
Yeah.
And that honestly, it's pretty easy to get lost on LinkedIn, believe me. Okay, because there's so many different ways of doing stuff, and in different settings that you may not have exactly right. When we talked about that before,
Mhm.
before the show, sometimes people show up in LinkedIn Lives as LinkedIn user, and unless they got the proper setting, so I almost always will, if I see someone like that, send them that link that says, if you'd like to change that, here's this. It's your choice. I'm not telling you to change it. It's just
Mhm.
that if you want to show up with your picture, you might want to do this. So,
Oh, I absolutely. I do sometimes see people. I have friends who have keep their LinkedIn profile private, and I'm like, if you're going to be that private, don't even be on there. That of course, that's just my opinion.
yeah.
So I have to ask you. I like to always ask the people on my show, what what is the what do you most enjoy about what you do?
I think the thing that feeds me the most in terms of when I do one of these, or I really enjoy hearing the words, "Oh, I could do that," or actually, if I'm in person, because of the in-person idea, I haven't gotten to do this as much, obviously, over the
Hmm.
last few years. But if I'm in person, I can actually see the light bulb go on over somebody's head. And that's what I really enjoy about this process. So, I've been on LinkedIn a long time. I know a few things. Well, I've actually described myself kind of as farmer's insurance. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two as far as LinkedIn is concerned. So I love to be able to show something to someone that they never saw before, or bring up a topic. I mean, we talked about this. We talked about mentioning people and mentioning a bunch of people. We didn't really talk about what they call a tag wall, but we should talk about that term, tag wall. It's like 20 people in a
Yep.
row just for the sake of mentioning them to get them involved in the conversation. Blah 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 blah. Okay. I usually sometimes use a different term for it. I sometimes call it mention stuffing. Okay. It's
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, you're a resume person, so that you tell your people to not keyword stuff as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yep.
The keywords need to be interspersed. They don't need to go bing, 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 bing as a list. So I think that's a bad piece of etiquette as well when you mention stuff. Put people's names out there. And I've got friends who do it, but they're really just trying to give credit to people who have been past awardees or et cetera. So it's okay. I cut people slack. And
No,
again,
I'm glad that you brought that up because I always close by saying, is there something that we haven't discussed that you think is important? And I think that as well. And it's, um, i- for example, when I post a list of LinkedIn lives that I have coming up, I do tag the guests that I'm having, but
sure.
I almost sometimes think twice about it because I also share those on my company page so that people that come there and but I think about it, and if I am doing something, Jilly and actually did something last year for I don't know, some kind of LinkedIn thing, and we're talking about other creators, and we tagged a bunch of different people in our little video that we did. But we at her suggestion, which is something that I learned at the time, we contacted them because there were like 8 different people there. We contacted them and said, "Oh, by the way, we're doing this, and we just want to let you know."
Yep.
But I know about those tag walls. I have someone, a couple of people that will tag me all the time, and I don't know why. And I usually don't respond because I don't know them that well, and it's not really a thing. But
Yeah.
why do people do that? Just to get
It's well. Here's another thing that I think if you figure this out, you'll understand it better, and you'll understand that it's probably not proper etiquette. I think a lot of people do that because they are bowing to the almighty algorithm. Okay. And I'm sorry, I refuse to be a slave to the algorithm. People will tell me whether or not I put what I put out there is of any use because they'll first of all view it. Second of all, they'll actually engage with it. They'll comment on it, right? And people should know me well enough to know that I'm also willing to let them say that was probably inappropriate. Okay. Hopefully they won't say it in the comments, but they've got free reign to give me that message that says, "Do you think that was proper?" Okay. And again, uh, that's okay with me. So I don't be a slave to the algorithm. It's not all about the numbers. It's not all about how much reach you have. It's about how much value you add and how many conversations you have. That's really what is the proper etiquette on LinkedIn.
Well, our time is just running out, and I thank you so much for joining me this morning and for this great conversation. This, doing these shows is actually my favorite part of everything else, everything that I do. And so I am so appreciative of you being here, and thank you to people who have been out there. I know there's a couple of people I see the reaction. So thanks so much for being here, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. A pleasure. Namaste.